presidential event where people are saying the one-term words. So one term was not in that particular incident where the president spoke to this gathering in Kisumu. So the second video as well, fake. 65% had thought here that it's real, and almost half of the people here had thought it is real. Okay? That's how we decode how we can tell a fake video. We call that the NTV fact check. Okay? So it's always very important to always consider, as we said, that what you use most
is logic.
Logic.
We have to use logic.
Yeah.
All right. We'll do this every week. We call it the NTV fact check. That would find a thing that is showing up, and we'll try and dissect it and make sense of it all. It's important for all of us. As we said, this is why we call this program The Last Word. But let's get to the topic of today, all right? And the question that we're asking today is, do you think, or do you feel that Kenya is more democratic today than it was 35 years ago when the first Saba Saba showed up in 1990? So a bit of context. 1990, Kenya was in a one-party state, and a section of Kenyans then felt, absolutely, that is wrong. We should do something about it. And then President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi was running a one-party state and a system constitutionally guaranteed that everyone has to be in one political party. Now, the protests that showed up on that day called Saba Saba, where people were maimed and killed, is regarded as the first bottom line of us getting into this new constitutional dispensation. After that, pretty much after that, we got into a multi-party, and Kenya was regarded then to start looking up democratically. And so the question then is, yesterday, from the maandamano on Saba Saba Day, 35 years later, if you look, do we believe that we've made progress? Is Kenya in a more democratic space than it was, say, 35 years ago? Complex question to think about. But also, democracy is an animal. It's a concept. It's something that we experience, we feel, and we don't know what it is. Zaha, our dictionary, define it for us. What is this democracy thing that we'd like to talk about?
Well, in layman language, since again, the education spectrum of Kenya seems to be very diverse, especially in the ones who we are trying to describe. Well, democracy is a system of government which power is vested. And I think I'd want to say specifically, power is vested in the people who exercise that power either directly or through elected representatives. The word there specifically is that it is vested by the people. It is a social construct or contract between the public that they vest out some of the power to elected representatives who then use your small shared power to represent you on that scale.
The people shall.
The people shall.
What are the pillars?
Of course, and this power that is vested in the people manifests, particularly in our context. We have to look at pillars in which democracy manifests and comes alive in our country. And we want to look at 4 pillars, particularly, of democracy. That is the separation of powers we have in our country, the executive, the legislation, and the judiciary. And the aim of this is to not have the concentration of power in one particular arm, and this allows then for oversight and for representation. We also have institutions as the second pillar, establishment of credible institutions. Crucially, in the center of this is electoral institutions, that's the IEBC, which then will assure free and fair and regular elections, which is a very fundamental pillar to democracy, making sure that leadership is transient and that the voice of the people is heard and is protected. We also have the rule of law, very fundamental in a democracy, which is the principle that all individuals and institutions are subject and accountable to laws that govern all of us. Very crucial things that, of course, we will be unpacking as we look at the state of where we are right now. And the fourth is the freedoms that are guaranteed in the Constitution, which is also very important in a democracy. We have freedoms that we can look at in Kenya specifically that are overarching and that we've seen people expressing the state of it and how they feel their freedoms. Freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, freedom of the media, very fundamental freedoms that are protected by the rules that govern us as a democratic state. The question then becomes, how are these pillars? Are these pillars standing? Are they supported? Are they under threat? Then becomes the rule and the measure of our democracy.
Right. So this democracy thing, away from from our academics, is really at the bottom line how we imagine we govern ourselves. The point being that we, the people, have all the powers, and then we donate these powers to a group of people we call politicians to exercise it on our behalf. All right? Yes. That is the fundamental principle, and I'm absolutely going to murder this. Churchill said democracy is a bad system of governance. Okay? But with the rider, the other forms are worse than it. All right? Just to make sense. Latif.
Who says democracy?
Churchill. It's a bad system of governance, right? And I mean, and we go to it because the frictions of democracy are problematic, right? The judiciary, has to.
Statement.
Yes, and it is. It's a bad system because we have to fight about it almost all the time. But that is literally at the core of what democracy is, that we have to compete constantly to make the system perfect. That's the point of democracy.
I'll come to a point where I'll actually ask about that definition of democracy and whether there is just one size-fits-all definition for democracy. Because sometimes I feel that democracy in a certain context then is taken across the globe and it's supposed to fit all the contexts. And I'll have arguments about that. But maybe before I even come in and ask, let's just ask our audience. Again, green, red. Green, yes. Red, no. What's the question again, Smart?
All right. Do you feel that Kenya is more democratic today than it was 35 years ago? Straight question. Green is absolutely yes. Kenya is doing fantastically well. Red, we've regressed. We're not doing well. Just raise it up a bit. Not really. There's 2 greens here and 5. So yes, we appear like more people are saying. Can I just get the microphone to those who feel that we are doing well? Let's start with the wells. Just put your green flags. Brilliant. Where's the microphone? Where's the microphone? I want the ones who are doing well. Give the gentleman at the back. Your name quickly, 30 seconds, please stand up. Why do you think we're doing extremely well?
Thank you so much. My name is Bernard Karanja from Nyandarua County. I feel that Kenya is trying to wear that face of democracy, but its soul is in crisis because this is not the democracy. I feel that this is not the democracy that Kenyans fought for, because as we are seeing police brutality, the extrajudicial killings, and people that we go to protest, they are faced with depression instead of embracing what they are trying to advocate for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who else thinks that we're doing well? And where's the microphone? Please.
Yes, my name is Ayugi. I'm from Langata. I believe, to be honest, democracy is not working in Kenya. And for me, I believe it's a foreign concept that should be thrown away.
So wait. You think it's not working?
It's not working.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying.
Why do you think it's not working?
The system that we have is not set in a manner that it allows democracy in itself to thrive.
Given a chance, what kind of system would you institute?
I think if we because I believe Africans, we have our own way of ruling ourselves. Democracy is a foreign concept that should be done away with. Let's Africans get back to ourselves, realize and think of what is it, how exactly are we going to rule ourselves.
So you'd want a king, a chief
kind
native,
of, I think that can work, because if you look at countries,
this is a very good point. It's a very good point.
If you look at countries like maybe China,
yes,
we don't have these issues that you see around people fighting one another, police killing people aimlessly like that, because they have a different system of governance. This is a foreign thing that came with the Europeans and Americans. They're trying to push it down our throats. It is not even working in America that they're talking about. In America, it's not working. So for me,
you do have a very good point.
Yes, probably you should call call me for this debate on another day, because democracy is not working in Africa.
Yes. I take your point.
Thank you.
Who else thinks that it is working? I want the positive voices first, because, I mean, yes, two more, and then we go to why it's not working. Where is the microphone? The gentleman there, please stand. Why do you think it's working?
Thank you. My name is Simon Omboa from Kathiani constituency. As a lawyer, I want to say that democracy is working, and we are at least realizing it from this perspective. I would define democracy to be the balance between the power we vest directly to the indirectly to those who we elect, and the legitimate expectation, what we expect from them. Actually, there is always internalization and actualization of law. I can say that currently, for us to say we are democratic, about 90% of the laws enshrined in the Bill of Rights, today we can fight for them, we can actualize for them, we can go to the streets, we can protest. At least we are democratic from that point. I can say the Constitution, being the supreme law of Kenya, is working. It's not just law on books.
It's working. So for you, it's the ability for the citizens to push back and go to, say, courts and that space. That's democracy, and for you, it is working.
Yeah, it's working because we are achieving some equilibrium.
All right. Who else? One final one. Who do you think it's working?
Yes, good evening. I'm Godfrey. I think...
What's your name, sir?
Oh, Godfrey.
Godfrey.
Yeah, I'm from Kibra.
Yeah.
I think, to me, I'll just compare our country to our neighbors. And comparing Kenya to countries like Uganda and Tanzania, I'll definitely say our democracy is there. We can question these people. And at the same time, we've seen our courts ordering president to do things. These things, you cannot see them in other countries like Tanzania or Uganda. So to me, I think it is working. The problem is those at the top.
Those are the
people
top.
mandated to implement it.
Those at the top. Those at the top. Do you have a different view, sir? Is it working? And that will be the last one before I come. Yes. Give this gentleman the microphone. The gentleman at the back, please stand, say your name very quickly, and tell me, why do you say Kenya's democracy is working?
Yes, my name is Abokelisha from Kibra, and I want to say that Kenyan democracy has grown, and that's the reason as to why you can see Gen Zs on the street. We can mention that Article 1, the power belongs to the people. We cannot say that if our democracy has not grown. And the same thing on our constitution that we promulgated in 2010, it is clearly giving us the mandate, and it is so clear that we can quote that Article 37 can give us the power to go to the street.
Right.
Our democracy has grown compared to that of Tanzania and Uganda. You see, you cannot even try to demonstrate in Uganda. You will be in for it. Thank you.
All right, ladies, gents. A few things. I'll come back to you guys because this is very important, right? There's several things here. One is historically, which is a fact, that democracy is not a thing that we came about with. So as Africans, right? It was a transported idea. That's the fact, and that's truth. And perhaps, you know, for argument purposes, maybe there is a better system of governing ourselves. That is one. Two, which is critical and important, the fact that there is ability to do certain things in this country. Go to courts, petition the courts, and get judgments, all right, against the executive, all right? And that's just, you know, a big example, and it comes out as an important factor because if you, say, look at how our neighbors or look at how other countries don't have that right, then on those two rights, then you can say, maybe there's a thing. I don't know where to start. Sharon.
Right. I mean, I don't know what reverting to what was before democracy would be.
Chiefdom.
The African traditional system.
Yeah.
Council of Elders.
Council of Elders.
It was
And I guess
collegial.
there's some underlying systems and frameworks that you can see correlating with the system of democracy. It's about how it works, and it comes down to the point of, are we somewhere? Are we doing well 35 years later? I feel we have grown significantly as a democracy. We cannot refute how far we have come. We have a constitution, we enjoy freedoms and rights. And I think one of the big issues that we face as a country is the spirit of the people who then we entitle with leadership, with the oversight of governance, you know, and just leading according to the Constitution. And one of the pillars that we have mentioned is separation of powers. And the essentiality of this is to make sure that one person, this is what we were actually coming away from when we went, when we agitated for multi-party democracy in the country, so that you can oversight, you can have dissent on whatever rules, whatever decisions are made on behalf of us as citizens. But let's look at the reality of what is happening on the ground today. Parliament is meant to do, to legislate. Do they do that independently?
I mean, Pasaris is doing.
How independent?
This is, I mean, the ability, I think you have to, even if they pass ridiculous laws, and even if, for argument purposes, and even if those members of parliament are not independent-minded, there's a performance of democracy. And there has to be something in there, that at least you're performing democracy.
Right.
We might not be delivering democracy, but we are performing democracy.
You know, James, a good dancer knows when to leave the stage. So for how long should they perform?
But as long as it's feasible.
You know, I want to come in and say, we are saying 35 years ago versus today, right? So 35 years ago, we didn't have that collegial African traditional way of, but 35 years ago, we had gone and bought this bread in the market and we brought it home, okay? So let's accept that this is our bread. So let's gauge it from the bread. Now, 35 years ago, and I agree with Sharon, in that a lot has changed. 35 years ago, we had a constitution that was vague on where the sovereignty lie. Today, we have a constitution that clearly spells out that the people are the sovereign. That's number one, right? That means that the people are the ones who have the power, and they're the ones who will know what to do with that power. And they shall, donate that power to institutions and leaders and expect them to do work. But also it doesn't end there, that the people shall also oversight these people by making sure that they go back to a ballot and pass a vote of confidence. And in many cases, there's a way to remove any non-performing executive at any point during their tenure. Okay, it's all set in. So we have systems that are working now, and you can look at it and you can see that they're better. If you look at what was happening, for example, 35 years ago, Daniel Arap Moi was the president. Daniel Arap Moi could prorogue parliament. Prorogue here means that, and I'm going to say, I'm a vunja bunge. Okay? Parliament, all of you, 290 plus 12, go home. I'm calling an election. Today, the president cannot control the calendar of parliament. Okay? The calendar of parliament is set by parliament, and when they go on recess and so on and so forth. And when we go into an election is also set in the law. The president cannot determine that. So have we separated powers? I think we have. The president picked electoral commissioners directly. For example, in the 1992 first multi-party election, the president picked all 12 commissioners. In 1997, he was about to, and then parliamentarians came and pushed, and they said, okay, let's have IPPG. And they said, all right, so you opposition people, you can pick a few, but still the president appoints. Today, the appointment of electoral commissioners is in law, not a preserve of the president. In fact, the president does not participate. The president only comes to appoint them, playing a ceremonial role of head of state to gazette. So there are changes that have taken place. If we look back and say, oh, but you see, but is parliament neutered, but so on and so forth, blame the people. They have the power.
Well, but didn't our judiciary actually dissolve this parliament, but there's no respect to the same separation of power which happens to be the judiciary? We keep shouting about a democracy that very much exists within the people's crowds, but very much less in the political spaces. Well, I think I support. There is democracy in the textbooks that I read in social studies when I was back in class 7.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's democracy.
Age is an illusion.
This is democracy. I'm going to say whatever you want to say, but please go.
And I remember Our Lives Today social studies textbook, which I remember was very comprehensive because apart from Mwai Kibaki giving us free education, social studies was free, right? And so I remember we were told the judiciary interprets, the legislature makes, and then the executive implements. I grew up and I found out that there's one arm of government that does everyone's job, and now I'm confused about what I was taught by my teachers. But then importantly, I think for me, when I look at, and thank God, us Gen Zs were not born before the Constitution was promulgated, after all that. Because again, the gender rule in Parliament right now scares me away, because again, when I think about the person representing me in Parliament, is it better than it was a couple of years ago? Yes. Has there been any changes that have primarily happened? None at all. In fact, today my hot button was somebody who I fully very much looked up to bring changes since women have come to Parliament. The Chief Justice, the Attorney General. And so this gender consciousness that we do have, please understand that there are very well-educated, scientific, political young women outside here that can actually sit on these positions. Another issue, I was growing up knowing that there are free and fair elections. And I can't tell you how excited I was to get my ID because I knew I would vote. Now,
great.
It is free in thought. Execution is very much independent of who is around. So all these things become relevant. So I think I want the older generation to explain to me, where does democracy actually lie if it does not lie within the people power that we Gen Zs are actually living towards? Otherwise, I have very credible questions.
So let's be a bit more perceptive. And this question of performative democracy. So important things are going to vote, elections. We spend quite significantly in this exercise of an election, okay? And it's one of those performative things, the shiny things about democracy, yeah? That if you go and vote and then the person that you really wanted to win wins, then perhaps there's democracy, all right? And if your person doesn't win, democracy is a bit shaky, right? We've seen that consistently for quite a while. So I want to go back to you guys and your boards again. For those who think that our democracy is not working, I really want to figure out what is it exactly? What is it exactly that is not working? Okay? Please put your boards again. For those who think democracy is not working for Kenya, where is the microphone? Someone who's not spoken. Yes, this gentleman. Yes. Yes, please. Your name and very quickly, what is it that is not working in democracy for you?
Oh, thank you. I'm David Ogutu from Kibra. And the question of democracy is in a limbo in Kenya because people are now talking about leadership. I like the faith of the Gen Z talking about leaderless. They're talking about tribalists, and they're being led by the same faith. And this is what we are also learning, that how really this affects the life of the young people. This is what is now eating Kenya because the leaders of Kenya today are divided and we are led according to the tribe. So the people who could live and lead with this constitution we have is the people that we really, the kind of leadership that we really bestow, the kind of leaders that we elect.
So to get
how do we elect? That's the question now. How do you elect these leaders?
Yeah, to get you correctly, that the fact that the people that we elect tend to be tribal, it shows you that for some reason our democracy is not working. It's not correct. All right, that's a good point.
Not.
The gentleman, give this gentleman on your right, just give the microphone. Him, the one, yes, you. Quickly, stand up. Your name, what is it with democracy that doesn't work for you?
Thank you. My name is Emmanuel Kioko. I come from Kitui County. Democracy is not working because we are given chance to give our dissent. But now, and that is meant to improve governance. But now when we give our dissent, it turns to us and we get killed. You know, and the fact that the government is deciding to barricade roads, you know, instead of fixing what is causing these people to go in the streets, it's, you know, it's an indication that the government is afraid of the people who are exercising their right, and they are meant to improve governance.
Okay.
But that is not what they're doing. Thank you.
All right. Another, yes, please. What is it exactly that doesn't work for you?
My name is Peter Obada. I'm from Siaya. We talk of democracy. My question tonight
is democracy, not in quotes.
What is democracy without justice?
All right.
You talk of democracy. Where's justice for Rex Masai? Where's justice for Albert Ojwang? And many others. You talk of justice. Where's justice to those who are coming to the street and the laws are being implemented in our National Assembly to prevent them from accessing public places, just to showcase the dissatisfaction with the government of the day? And by the way, what is democracy?
What is democracy? That's a good point. Yes, sir. What is it exactly that doesn't work for you in this democracy question?
Okay. My name is Javan Olo, a leader, strategist, and an orator. First of all, when talking about democracy, our constitution as integrated, it is written on paper, but the people implementing it is still no. Why am I saying this? We are in a situation, there's a quote that I like saying, for men will understand this quote. When a mosquito lands on your testicles, you will find a peaceful way on how to deal with the situation. We are having a government whereby when you put them accountable to whatever that is written in the constitution, they now decide to fight back with fire. And let me tell you, there's a generation that is coming, that is we. Allow me say this, there's this generation that is coming. We will get to power. And those people that are looting things and doing all these kind of things, you will return them, my friends. Thank you.
Okay.
You know, smart.
I'll come back. Don't worry.
We have posed this question also online.
Yeah.
And of course, our hashtag tonight is the last word NTV. On all our social media platforms at NTV Kenya. On YouTube, 64% of those who have polled say that we don't have a democracy. Is Kenya a more democratic state today than it was 35 years ago? 64% say no. Yes, it's only 36%. Let me just sample some of them. PM says, honestly, you can't compare democracy 35 years ago to today. As much as it has kind of failed, it's better than it was 35 years ago. James Karongo says, no democracy. Luta, we have democracy. Interpretation of the Constitution is where we have a contradiction.
Right, right. 2 points, I think, for me. The Constitution, especially the one that we have, comes from a backdrop of the Saba Saba. So, with what Willow said, we had this one-party state, and we were really upset by one person controlling everything. Essentially, the president would come to your village, that's when you'll get roads. The president decided when your village would get a school, and that sort of thing. And we were upset about it. And we said, it can't be so. We need a way on how to distribute this power. So this is how our constitution essentially is set up. The point of our constitution is that we were extremely scared concentrating power in one office or one person and wanted to distribute it across, which is why you have constitutional commissions, which is why we have parliament and give parliament powers, all right, and the judiciary. And we said, as Zaha explained to us, the executive gets to implement the things that we, the people, want.
Right. And I want to look at one of the indicators that we are not in a bad place as a democracy, and that is judicial independence. We've seen the judiciary making some high-profile rulings the last couple of years that really showcase their independence and show the health and possibilities. I mean, there are challenges, but some of the examples, I mean, we can remember the 2017 presidential election that was nullified, you know, first kind of its ruling in Africa. Recently, in 2024, the High Court declared the national government Constituencies Development Fund as unconstitutional. We also saw in 2021 the High Court ruling that the government could not proceed with the Huduma number rollout. you know, and also in 2023 declaring the creation of the CAS positions as unconstitutional as well. And in 2020, I think Zaha had referenced this. We had the then Chief Justice David Maraga issuing an advisory to the president to dissolve parliament, and also the court's ruling that the BBI process was unconstitutional. First, you know, showcasing the independence of the judiciary and separation from the executives. But that said, we've also seen time and time again the judges and judicial officers being on the receiving side, you know, of, you know, insults from this high power, you know, high level leaders and all of that. And also we've seen CSs, we've seen leaders defying court orders. These are some of the challenges that we face. But in terms of the health and the freedoms and the independence of the judiciary, I think it's one of the pillars that we can say is a leg to stand on.
So we're agreeing on a few things here in this room, that what we want is our politicians a bit constrained, right? A show of red flag, green flag. Who wants our politicians basically to control everything? Green flag, anyone? You want the control? Everything, like what you had 35 years ago. The president deciding when we have the roads, when you have the schools, when we have, who would like that kind of a system?
Not even anyone who's
not just the president, right? So we're agreeing that one of the things that is important for us, all of us, is this distributive power, the ability to have different centers of power, all right? The ability that members of parliament can audit the president or the presidency. They can also be audited by the judiciary. And that way, everyone has a bit of powers, that it's not concentrated in one place. That's an important thing, Zaha, is it not?
Well, you know, sometimes I think we tend to make the country look like it only exists within the political class and what they have to do and what not. The Constitution is like an employer too. It tells you exactly what you're supposed to do when you get to the seat. Then we have individualism that comes in, and therefore you decide what you want to do with your legislative seat. So if it was up to me, genuinely, if I had my own small island, there would be no politicians in the first place. Distributive power actually exists and has existed in the African context for a very long time, and very much so that we have seen from both ends, whereby patriarchal systems were existent in some extent, but we also have matriarchal systems that also upheld the constitutionalism of whatever the African context was. So I think for me, it would only be fair for me to be in a country that allows me to exist, that opportunities exist, and that I'm not necessarily pushed back to my house through death, through forceful pushback on dissent, but a country that allows me to be free as a young person, to go and grow to the best of my abilities as I am.
All right, you're watching The Last Word. We are live streaming on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, X, Twitter, websites, on social media handles. It's at NTV Kenya on all platforms, and on website it's ntvkenya.co.ke. We are taking a very short break. Don't use a democracy to switch. We'll be right back. Don't go too far.
Into an unforgettable adventure with sour, long-lasting bath soap. Kuna mengi na mengineyo yanayotokea mashinani.
Je, uhasama unaoshuhudiwa mpakani Kisii na Narok utaikuwa na suluhisho?
Tunapoteza maisha ya watu kwa sababu ya ng'ombe.
Unakijua kinachoathiri maisha ya watu kwako?
Tumeteseka sana juu ya mchanga tulimwagiwa.
Watusaidie